For today's video, I want to talk about controlling the tempo of a game. Now, everyone's had those games where it feels like the enemy team is applying so much pressure that you can't even walk out of your spawn door, where it feels like the matchmaking is bad and it just feels like a team diff. But a lot of times, though, I actually don't believe it really is a team diff. I think it's just all about understanding how to control the lead and how to take it back once you've lost it. In hero shooters, where you have a team of 6 on both sides, you're both fighting over control over the lead. The team that leads ultimately controls the objective. And a lot of times what you're trying to do is you're trying to control that numbers advantage and control the amount of space that you have in order to maintain that lead. A good way to do this is by staggering your kills every 20 or 30 seconds or so, rather than having one big team wipe where you wipe all 6 at once. Because anytime you wipe the entire enemy team all at once, that also forces them to regroup at the same time as well. It is a lot easier for you to maintain control over that lead by staggering the enemies one after another. A lot of times you'll do this by using ultimates. A lot of times you're going to want to use your ultimates basically off cooldown in order to either get the lead or maintain that lead and maintain those staggers. Now, because you're going to be using your ultimates a lot more often, you'll probably fail a lot more often too. The truth is, it's probably a lot better to use your ultimates more often than it is to hold them for too long. Now, you can definitely use a lot of the offensive ultimates to help control some of those staggers that you're getting on the enemy team, but also on the flip side of that same coin, support ultimates can be used in order to maintain control over that momentum, or to deny the enemy momentum. Now, this might mean that you have to ult a little bit early in order to keep your teammates alive, or you might need to ult a little bit more aggressively in order to allow you to continue to go forward, rather than holding it for countering another ultimate in the future. But a lot of times, the momentum that you're gaining from using those ultimates is more valuable than trying to counter a team fight later. Now, with that all being said, I'm going to show you a game here where I'm playing Emma and I have Captain Coach here on Hulk. And I'm going to show you how we go about controlling the momentum of this entire game, which allows us to cap all 3 points pretty easily, but also on defense where we end up losing that momentum and the actions we take to get it back. So that all being said, we'll jump into it.
Money can't buy happiness, but I can afford everything else.
Here you see at the start, I'm just moving up to try and build my energy up, and I'm trying to apply pressure to push them back, which will allow the convoy to move up so we can move up with it. The enemy at this point has the lead and has the advantage over us, which means that now I need to play a lot more slowly and a lot more passively until we get our other support back. If anyone on my team dies in this moment, we stagger ourselves super hard. In a 5v6, there's a chance we might be able to flip and take the advantage back, but if it ever gets to a point where it's a 4v6, the enemy team could easily walk us down. At the same time here, the offensive team has a little bit of an advantage is the fact that our spawn door is much closer than theirs is. So death on our side doesn't hurt nearly as bad as if it was a death on their side. But right now I'm going to play safe. I'm going to apply pressure until I see another opportunity in which we can take the lead back. And there you saw, as Namor was able to get a kill and then I was able to get a follow-up kill, it made it very easy to walk down the mag. The mag, seeing that he was at a disadvantage, wanted to try and get out of there, but I didn't let him and I was able to secure another kill, which is another stagger. And now in this moment, there's no realistic way for the enemy team to possibly flip this fight on us. So what I'm going to do, especially as the tank, is I'm going to try and apply as much pressure and take away as much space as possible and secure some more staggers, so that way the enemy team can't regroup by the time that the convoy pushes up to the objective. I push up with my high energy to apply pressure to the squishy characters. I was luckily able to secure a pick on the Mantis, which means that we get more staggers. In this moment, the enemy team hasn't fought as a full 6 since the very start of the game, and that's ultimately my goal. It is much more difficult to win a 6v6 fight at almost any elo. So instead, I'm going to try and play really aggressively and try and keep those staggers going, because those are a lot easier to secure. At the same time though, even though I secured the kill on the Mantis, once I pushed up and played aggressive and started to go for more kills, once it got too dangerous and I left the LOS of my team, I wasn't about to throw the lead that my team has gotten, so I immediately got out of there and healed myself back up and decided to just control the space instead. Remember, securing the lead for your team is important, but just as equally as important is not throwing your lead. Because of the fact that the enemy team had staggered from the very beginning, they weren't able to recontest the point at all. Me and Hulk were able to hold them off at the doorway, and they didn't feel comfortable walking out. It was because we staggered them so well that we were able to take away that space so easily, and we were able to deny them touching the point. The moment that we capped the point, I immediately walk out and immediately hit my ult. This isn't my best ult, but I'm playing a lot more aggressively to try and force resources and try and force myself, because if I get even one stagger here, it would be worth it. My team, all having the same idea, also pushed up and used their ultimates to try and see if we could secure more picks or at least secure more space.
What are you aiming at?
Your mind is mine. I suppose that helped.
We were able to pull a few ultimates out of them as well, but unfortunately someone on the enemy team ended up backcapping and slowing the progression of the convoy, and we didn't notice, but it was a nice play on the enemy's part. Still, I go back to make sure the convoy is rolling, and then I'm going to go back to controlling that space that we've taken so far. The enemy Gambit ults, which leads to them securing some kills on my team. Our Loki copied Gambit and then counter-ulted, and as we were kiting away and attacking the enemies who were playing aggressively on us, we were able to secure some kills on the enemy team, more than they were able to secure on us. So even though the enemy team got the lead, they made a mistake in accidentally playing too aggressive and then throwing their lead. And now that I know that my team is going to come back faster than their team is, I'm going to push up and start once again pushing the convoy and taking away space.
Just who Gambit was looking for.
Better stop that vehicle!
Turn you to death.
As we push up to take space and we've herded them back into the back right room, Namor hits a really fantastic ult and ends up securing more kills before once again the enemy team is able to fully regroup. Our Gambit then immediately ults, allows us to keep that momentum going, pushing out farther to try and secure some more kills, allowing me to walk all the way up to the enemy team's spawn without them being able to do anything. Now the convoy gets to move up for free and cap at the second objective. After we cap the second point, some of the members on the enemy team decide to walk out of their spawn and go under the bridge. I decide to then pop my ult immediately, hoping to get at least a single kill, but I end up getting 2 on the supports. This once again allows us to get more staggers, which means that we get to control the momentum, we get to control the pace of the game. The enemy team is now forced to regroup. And you always have to remember that even though the respawn timer is 10 seconds, it's still going to take you time to walk out of the spawn and regroup with your team as well and get into position. So the way that I usually think about it is that even though someone dies, they're out for 10 seconds, but it's still going to take them another 20 seconds on top of that before they're back with their teams. So give or take about 30 seconds that they're gone. So every stagger is another 30 seconds that the convoy gets to move up for free. Spidey's the only one that's slightly different in this, but even then, he's still out of the fight for 20 seconds versus 30. Yes, it's a little bit better, but Spidey's, please stop dying because you are still staggering yourself and we still do need you in the fight. But once again, now that we have that advantage, we're going to keep trying to push that advantage. As I push up to continue to take space away from the enemy team and try and secure more kills, I can't push up too far because of the fact that the convoy is still really far back. So while I push up to take space and try and keep my charge, I'm still turning around seeing where the convoy is and where my teammates are. Once the enemy team is fully regrouped, they start pushing me back a lot easier because of the fact that the rest of my team is still back with the convoy. Once I feel I'm taking too much pressure, I start to back out, and I start to give up some of that space, because once again, I don't want them taking the lead. Especially as a tank, if I die, the enemy team could very easily take the lead. So as they use a bunch of ults and I back up with my team, and I get saved by being crucially low, once we're stabilized again, now I can help them secure another kill and hopefully allow us to push the convoy up again. As we're pushing up, applying pressure, and dealing damage, the enemy team is looking for a safe place to fight from. Our Hulk, with his ult, decides to make a proactive play, go into the enemy team, and start causing a lot of chaos with his ult. This forces Jeff to try and counter ult, but the enemy team still doesn't have a whole lot of space to work with. And as they're backing up, Gambit then uses his ult, which allows us to play even more offensively, and luckily we're able to end up securing a kill through the Mantis ult. Now they're at a huge disadvantage, and as they're on the back burner and backing up, I once again use my ult following right afterwards to try and help secure more staggers, which will give us more time to allow the convoy to push forward. You can see here, we're not using all of our ultimates at once. We're finding ways in which to stagger our ultimates, which leads us to having a better advantage over the enemy team by securing kills one after another rather than all at once. Now granted, of course, there are times in order to win the team fight you want to combine ultimates together, but in this instance, we're more interested in trying to secure those staggers one after another. Because unlike where you're trying to fight over control over a point, we're not trying to win an entire team fight. We're trying to secure time and space that allows the convoy to move forward, and staggers is the best way to do that. After the enemy Gambit ulted, we started to kite back and give up some space temporarily, and once we used 2 support ults to counter against it, we were in a pretty safe spot to fight back. Because we had played so safe and played so smart, by the time we went back in and re-engaged, we were able to secure a kill on the enemy team, which gave us the advantage. And once we have the advantage, it's very easy to get any cleanup kills after that. And as you can see, as the enemy team is coming out of spawn, they're coming out one at a time in order to try and touch the convoy because they realistically don't have time to wait to regroup as a full team. So they have to walk out one at a time, which is much better for us because it's much easier to fight them one at a time than it is if they were all coming out as 6. This is the power of staggering your enemy versus trying to team wipe them all at once.
Did you even train for this? Impervious!
The current score is 0-3. Time to switch things up, including which side you're on.
Mon Dieu, that hurt.
I suppose suppose that helped.
They're coming from behind.
I need assistance.
The moment I saw that my team was starting to back up and we ended up losing the Namor, I tried to get out of there, but unfortunately I was slipped in the process. I knew the fight was over, I knew we had taken too much damage, I knew we had to stabilize, but unfortunately I couldn't get out in time. Right now, the enemy team has control over the lead, but what my team wants to do is we want to not stagger ourselves any farther and want to regroup as 6. Because typically what ends up happening is once one person falls over, the rest of the team falls over right afterwards. It creates a domino effect. So when you know a fight is over, it's time just to back up and get out and get to someplace safe so you can regroup properly. This is how really good players control the flow of the game. They understand the domino effect that happens. They understand that a lot of times all they need to do is secure that first kill to create the domino effect, which allows them to secure the rest of the kills, or allows their team to secure the rest of the kills. At the same time, those players also play to live, so they're not that first domino that ends up toppling over, which ends up putting their team at a disadvantage. So now in this moment, my team needs to regroup. Unfortunately, my team doesn't have the same idea, and they end up getting themselves staggered, but I still push up to try and take space to try and see if I can't control some of it. But because the convoy isn't fully at the corner yet, I try to push up to try and see if I can't take some space away, because ultimately I don't want my team to be held in the doorway like we did to them. Unfortunately though, by being down 2 of the highest healers on my team, we're not in a very good spot.
I'm back, and now there's hellfire to pay.
Luckily, as my team came back, they were able to use their ultimates to secure the control over the objective again, but it was very sloppy. There's definitely cleaner ways we could have handled this as a team.
I need assistance.
Your mind is mine.
Gambit never falls.
Mind crush.
Throughout all of the chaos, I turned to use my ult, and unfortunately I only used it on the Venom. It was a really poor use of my ultimate there. I thought there'd be more people behind me trying to contest the objective, and I was wrong.
Mental domination. I was fine, thank you. Mind crush.
As I do my best to try and anchor onto the convoy and maintain control over the objective, in the end I ultimately get overpowered. And now in this moment, the enemy team has full control over the objective, and they have full control over the lead and the space. And here once again, in my team's position, we want to regroup as 6 and not stagger ourselves farther.
A little extra power never hurt. Look who's here.
Knowing the enemy team was trying to take a fight and hearing the Deadpool ult, I immediately turned my ult on him to try and secure the kill on him. Here we have the numbers advantage. It's 6v5 in our favor, and I know it might seem like overkill to use an Emma ult on just a singular Deadpool, but because of the fact that now we have this advantage and we have the lead, we have control over the fight and over the spacing. Now the enemy team has a choice. Do they try and take a risky play in which they take a 5v6, or do they wait 30 seconds for their Deadpool to come back and regroup with them? And my team is going to look to see if the enemy team is going to try and make any of those ballsy plays to see if we can't secure any more staggers. I had pushed up thinking that we were going to control that space around the convoy and thinking that we were going to control that corner because it's a really good corner to hold, and I didn't realize that my team had backed up so far. It was really unfortunate. I probably should have turned around to do a team check to see where they were at, but now the enemy team has won this team fight, and now we need to regroup.
I was fine, thank you.
After some ult trades back and forth between my team and the enemy team, my team ends up buying enough time for some of us to come back and contest that objective. At the very least, the more the convoy pushes up and gets closer to capping at the second objective, the closer it ultimately is for our spawn, and the farther away it is for the offensive team. So us securing kills there is a lot more beneficial for us. Once we have the advantage, we start searching down whoever's left and trying to see if we can't secure more staggers, and as we wash up and I see the enemy team there, my gambit decides to ult to allow us to try and secure more kills and secure more staggers before they have time to fully regroup. After my team secures a bunch of staggers, we push them all the way back into their spawn door. They know that this is the best thing to do because of the fact that it's too dangerous to even walk out. We don't want to hang outside of their spawn door though, because it's not a very safe place for us to be. There's not a whole lot of cover and not great retreat paths. So once they start to respawn, we start to back up and give them some space temporarily. Instead of holding the corner, I tell my team, hey, pull them out around the corner, pull them over to the convoy. I want them to all to walk forward thinking they're going to try and make an attack on my team, and I'm going to use my Emma ult from behind them. With there being such little time on the clock, I know they're going to want to try and rush to try and make a play and try and make something happen, and that means they're going to make a mistake. They're going to be so focused on trying to get to the convoy that they're not going to bother turning around and seeing what's behind them. And with my ultimate helping us secure a couple of kills, it made it very easy to win the rest of the team fight afterwards. This game was a really great example of how you can play aggressive as a team and how you can stagger your ultimates to get the maximum value that you can out of them. Everyone on the team was trying to make a play, but we're also playing off of the actions that our allies were doing. We didn't have to communicate everything that we were about to do. We just saw what they were doing and said, okay, if you're going to ult, I'm going to go with you. I'm going to follow up with that. Even at times when my ult would fail, my teammates, knowing that the enemy team had used a bunch of resources to try and get away from my ultimate, you followed up with their ults right afterwards, which still allowed us to get more picks, which allowed us to get more staggers. This game didn't have a lot of big team fights. It didn't have a lot of big flashy plays. It was just us trying to methodically control that tempo of the game, to try and make sure that we were always in the lead, and make sure that we were always the one in control. And it wasn't always the same person that gave our team control either. But my team played smart, they played to live, and the moment that we saw someone on our team get a pick, we followed up immediately with the type of aggression that you're supposed to have. And once we would see our teammate get a kill, we would start to push up with them to try and see if we can't help secure more. By constantly being in control of that space and controlling those kills, it made it very easy to control the convoy at all times. All too often, people in the game think way too much about the amount of kills that they get or trying to win team fights. But full 6v6 team fights are very difficult to try and flip in your favor. And it is much easier to continue to stagger the enemies than it is to try and let them regroup as 6 and try and win a team fight again. I will always opt for using my ultimates a lot more aggressively to try and secure those picks and secure those staggers. And as you know, I am not against solo ulting someone just to get a singular pick. Because if I solo ult someone and I get a stagger, that means that I bought my team 30 seconds more time. And in that 30 seconds of time, when the enemy is respawning and coming back into the fight, I am building my next ultimate already. There might even be times you use ultimates just to keep them from accessing the point. It might not even get you any kills. Kills for sure give you time and space to secure the objective, but there are lots of different ways in which you can use your abilities to maintain control over that objective. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this, I want you to start thinking more creatively about how you can use your ultimates to control that momentum, control the lead. Because the more your team is in the lead, the more you control that objective. And at the end of the day, this is an objective-based game, so don't forget that. Anyway, that's all I got for this one. Hopefully you found it helpful, and if you have any questions, as always, leave them in the comments below.